Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. Today we're going to be talking about some new stuff in another Interact post, talking about some other new things. We're going to be talking about some stuff with Mavuika's kit, also possibly Pyro Traveller. I'll be talking a little bit about the Abyss and a new boss that could possibly make some interesting runs for the future. Also, we'll be talking about some new interesting things that are going to be coming along, some possible skins, thespian tricks that are going to be coming up in the newer part of the endgame content. So there's going to be some new things we'll be talking about there. More amazingly new characters are releasing, and that means a higher chance of a certain zombie ruining your lucky streak. Pulling out the card like one of my favorite forgotten characters, Shenhe, make it a little bit easier on yourself and use Loot Bar. With Loot Bar, you can top up your account at a discounted rate compared to the game's store. You actually play other games, Loot Bar can help you elsewhere as well. There are a few reasons to use Loot Bar, the first being that you only need to give your UID and server, which keeps your account completely safe. No emails or passwords needed. Another reason is that they offer 24/7 live chat support that Rift and I have used ourselves. Definitely not after losing a 50-50 at 3 AM. The third reason is that you can see all 5,000 reviews people have left if you're still unsure about making a purchase. The last reason is that you're guaranteed to get your currency within 30 minutes of completing your purchase. Other creators have also used Loot Bar to top up their accounts as well. Check out the link in the description or pinned comment and make the right choice, like this rap being done better than Hu Tao's. Now, back to the video. The first thing we want to talk about though is Chaska's specific kind of changes that she's gotten recently. Now, from last time we talked about her in version 1. Version 1 to version 2, she got a little bit of a damage increase on certain parts of her kit. Version 2 now to version 3, since the most recent, she has gotten a little bit of a nerf, mainly in her Shadow Hunt shell damage that comes from her skill. So her initial way that she does a lot of damage, it got a little bit of a damage decrease, probably just because she was doing so much damage compared to all the buffing characters that we have. So keep that in mind a little bit as you are running or going after Chaska. It's not necessarily a reason to not pull her. Just know that if you've seen any testing or anything, the numbers might be a little bit smaller, but it might get, evened out in the future as well. But besides that, Rift, could you go ahead and talk to us about the possible idea of what Mavuika's kit looks like?
Yeah, so looking right at her skill, she's going to do this thing where she's actually getting rid of her weapon. She's like throwing it off to the side, and she's going to enter her Night Soul state with the skill. And then there's a short press, and there's actually what looks like to be two versions of a long press, which we'll get to. But with the short press, her weapons change, like we said. She throws it away, and she's now carrying like this sun torch, and she's going to be throwing fireballs. So basically, she's Mario with the fire flower now. So with the log press, though, the first version of it, she's going to run to the target, slash, and enter in an infusion state, and then she's going to swing her weapon, probably that sun torch, punching it and generating waves of some sort. Now, the other version of the long press, the weapon is going to crush into pieces, and it turns into a motorcycle. And then she's going to jump on it and ride around on the motorcycle. And then she can change to a glider when she's on air, and then an explosion occurs when she hits an enemy. So there's like a lot of just different weird things going on. You've got the props, like the motorcycle. She originally throws her claymore weapon away, and now she's got this sun torch. She's throwing fireballs. So there's a lot of different things going on. It definitely sounds very interesting. So I don't know, Vixen, what are kind of some of your thoughts on how that might work or play out? Because we really don't have too much information still on how this might come out to play.
When I was reading this a few days ago, Mario did not pop in my mind, but I'm never going to get that out of my head now.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. I think with Mavuika, and we'll talk about her burst in a second, but with the skill and everything, I do like that. I think that with the short press, kind of using the sun torch and throwing fireballs, I think either it's going to be like an off-field follow the character type thing, where it'll periodically do pyro application, and that's kind of the idea that people were talking about. They wanted an off-field pyro character, and this was kind of my idea for the longest time, is that I genuinely think that Mavuika is all the Archons have been about what they're supposed to do, the mechanic that they follow, right? They're not supposed to, for instance, Hydra is known as the application element, right? The most versatile element. But Farina doesn't do a lot of application if you actually think about it. She's not like a Yelan or a Xingqiu. She doesn't do that. There's other parts of, other characters. Nahida does do application, but, she's also helps mainly with the idea of EM, right? That's their mechanic. That's that idea. So my idea, I think when people were looking for Mavuika, they were hoping that even if she does have a instance where she can enter an infusion state and be her own DPS, there's another idea where she has this sun torch and throws fireballs, and it'll do a lot of application so that we can get rid of our Xianglings. I personally think, and this kind of almost solidifies it a little bit more, that I don't think Mavuika is going to be a high application character when she's off field, just because I think her whole idea is not to get in place of another character. It's to be the peak or the ultimate part of the Archon area's kind of like their whole idea, their mechanic, which is the Night Soul state. And I think with that, the burst kind of comes into play. So if you use the burst, it'll give some Night Soul and interruption resistance to probably the character that's on field, and also it'll give a basic attribute. I'm gonna guess is attack. So I think overall, once again, she's giving everyone Night Soul, so she can be used off field. But when she's used off field, her major purpose is to either help Night Soul like aligned characters and kind of give like a attack increase to most characters, kind of like how double Pyro already does. So I think that's going to be the idea with Mavuika. So that's at least once again my personal opinion. And with this kind of showing us that, I think that that's a little bit more smart to go across, is that I would be wary of her being in place of your Xiangling.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely a good take on it. Yeah, I just like the idea how the Archon is going to play off of the main mechanic of the area. I think that's a good point to make just in general. I mean, even with Farina, you talked about, she's got both Usia and Numa. She's the only character that can do that. So you can definitely see traces of that throughout the game, where the Archon is just kind of their specialty for what the region overall is kind of pointing to. So I really do like that. We also do have something a little bit on the Pyro Traveller. This is like crumbs. So it's saying here with the E or the skill, it's just one explosion. We're not given stats, we're not given any further information as of right now on what that might look like, just massive explosions. So maybe that's just a damage type of skill. With the burst, it's basically going to summon a floating cannon type thing, probably going to do some pyro damage over time. It's also going to have some ways to increase attack over time, maybe for the cannon itself, for the Pyro Traveller, or maybe other characters. That'd be kind of interesting as well. So the skills maybe just like a big damage hit, something like what Chevreuse does, just without a buff. Maybe a passive would give a buff to it or something like that. So it does kind of seem interesting. I'm kind of getting the impression that Pyro Traveller is going to actually be a good character. That's what I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, and the fact that we've had to wait for it may mean that Hoyoverse is cooking with it, or it could just be totally story related, and I'm just trying to be optimistic. Who knows? The next thing we did get, though, moving on from these things, looking at some Spiral Abyss changes. The next Spiral Abyss that's supposed to be around is going to actually have the new boss with the new 5.2 region. So let's talk about that. It's going to be on the second half of floor 12-2. So with it being a new boss, it's obviously going to have new mechanics, just a new way to fight it. So let's talk about how we fight this boss. So looking right at this boss is called the Tenebris Papilla, or Papilla, however it's supposed to be called, right? It has a thing called Void Fantasia, and during this Void Fantasia, its frequency shield void barrier will appear for 15 seconds, blocking all damage. Now that's important to note, because basically all your damage is going to be nullified to 1 instead of whatever it's supposed to do. So this isn't about dealing damage right now during this void barrier. This void barrier, from what we're seeing here in images, it looks a lot like, if you guys remember, we were in the Archon quest fighting just all of these different Abyss enemies, and where the Archon quest actually had you fight for a very long time. I was actually surprised how long it was going on for, and you had to save people in Natlan and stuff like that. There were a lot of these purplish type creatures from the Abyss that right under their health bar, they had this white bar that actually built starting from the middle of their bar and then building outwards as you dealt damage, until then the shield was gone. You could actually deal your damage, and they weren't taking damage while you were just doing attacks to it, right? That is exactly what this looks like, but in a boss. So you have to just do a lot of elemental attacks, and from what we're seeing here, it's going to require 53 elemental attacks to destroy this thing. And then now you can deal your damage, and it's not all nullified. Now the interesting part about this is that Night Soul attribute attacks are considered as 3 elemental attacks. So if you don't have a Night Soul attribute character, or just basically a not Natlan team, it's going to take 53 elemental attacks. Now with the Night Soul attributes counting as 3, it's going to basically go 3 times faster essentially, and so you can get through that shield a lot quicker. Now also, while this void barrier is up on this boss, the all resistance of the boss is increased to 70%, and destroying the void barrier while it exists, all of the resistance will be reduced for some time. During this Void Fantasia state of the boss, it's going to constantly attack you, and also it's going to be consuming the character's HP upon hit, ignoring shields. That's also another huge thing to think about, because Zhongli doesn't matter for this fight anymore. All the damage goes right through shields. Any shield character is almost rendered useless unless they have some kind of damage in their kit. You can still use them. Zhongli does have some resistance decrease while his skill's active and stuff, tenacity. So it's not like completely useless, but the shield is. Like that, this boss is sitting right through it. If the void barrier that we talked about is not destroyed in time, which remember, it appears for 15 seconds. If you don't destroy that, it's going to additionally consume HP equal to 60% of max HP plus 3,000, and it deals a massive physical damage hit to the entire arena. This is this is a big deal. You have to get rid of this thing or you're taking a massive hit of damage and you cannot dodge this thing. It hits the entire arena. So this is a very interesting kind of, seems kind of difficult probably it's going to be difficult for some teams. It's definitely pushing Natlan type characters with the Night Soul aligned state. So Vixen, what are kind of all of your thoughts on this boss just overall?
So yeah, overall, I think, in general, like you said, you have to focus on making sure you just have characters, if they are not Natlan-specific characters that are just going to be attacking consistently. So sadly, this does mean that characters like Arlecchino and Neuvillette, who have stayed at the top, are still going to stay at the top for the non-Natlan teams. They're still going to be doing extremely well. Neuvillette hits consistently. Arlecchino is doing constant normal attacks as well. So the biggest thing to keep in mind, this is probably going to take an entire rotation. Normally with bosses, what we've seen is the characters usually like to wait to kind of get their, get the mechanic done so then you can do damage. But here you're actually probably going to use up a rotation of all bursts and whatnot probably to get the shield and everything off, and then go into a second rotation of actually doing damage. Don't be too scared to use bursts and whatnot. Don't necessarily waste them if you don't need them, like healing bursts and whatnot are probably not going to be that useful because all you care about is application. So Farina burst is not going to be necessary, but a Farina skill might be. Characters that heal, unless they do, like you said, Rift, unless they do damage, doing a burst with healing or shielding is going to be practically useless unless they actually do hits, because all you care about is application. Don't worry about heals, don't worry about anything else. Now, this thing is attacking you, so if you're thinking, okay, I might still need heals, and if this thing does hit hard still while it's, attacking you, and as you're trying to get the shield down, if it is attacking you too much, then I would say, oh, okay, then you're probably gonna have to use a healer. But for the time being, just try to have characters that are constantly attacking. We talked about characters like Hu Tao or whatever, who might have a little bit of a hard time with this boss. The good thing about that, though, is that if you use like Xingqiu and Yelan with Hu Tao, don't use your infusion or anything, I would guess, and just do a bunch of normal attacks over and over and over again. Because once again, all you care is about hitting the enemy, not about doing actual damage. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, unless your character's at like 8,700, 8,500 something HP, most likely you'll be fine and survive. Like a max HP, unless you have like 8,500 max HP, you'll be fine and won't die from this thing. This is probably like a level 90, level 100 boss, so it'll probably be a lower than 60% max HP plus 3,000. It'll probably be a smaller amount if you are a lower tier character or lower in the game. But once again, that's still to keep in mind, because if you have, a high HP character of like 40,000 HP, and the next thing you have, this thing is still hitting you for 60% of your max HP. So if you have 30,000 HP, you're still getting hit for a lot of HP. So if you have low HP, this could one-tap you. So be in mind, be careful, kind of be smart about that. And that's where the healer might come in good timing to make sure you stay alive for that instance.
Yeah, and I would think that this massive hit, that if you don't destroy the shield, is going to only hit your active character and can actually be shielded, since it's really the other mechanic that is ignoring the shield. It's much like if you guys have done one of those local legends, it's like Ichka Huapili or whatever, in the very top left corner of the map. If you guys know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then it's going to be hard to describe, but that basically why a boss who you go into this other realm and you start killing enemies to build up a buff that's shown at the top of the screen. You try to get the number to the max, 15, but as you kill more enemies, your health starts to drain more and more. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this, that as this boss is consistently attacking you while it has its shield, your HP is just going to be dropping steadily, and shields don't matter because that's just a mechanic. This big hit at the end, though, could be something that it says it's dealing massive physical damage to the arena, so it seems like that's separate from the mechanic. This is something you can actually block potentially.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just going to be something we're going to have to figure out as we get closer to 5.2. Let's go to the last few things. It's going to be very quick and pretty rapid succession. First thing we have is a new Yelan skin, so I'm sure Rift, you're going to be happy about that. Your first premium 5-star character.
Yep.
We don't know if this is for sure. We've seen back and forth for the past few days about whether or not she's actually getting a skin. Is she getting one? Is she not? This will probably be tied to, I'm going to guess, to the... I don't think it's going to be in 5.2. I think it'll be tied to the new Lantern Rite, probably. So it might be some time until we see it, but, you know, that is something to keep in mind.
Could be like through an event, like you just do the event.
Right.
And you get it, but I don't know because it's a 5-star skin. So
I think they'll do a 4-star one and then give us a 5, and then we'll have to pay for the 5-star. Is my thought. If they give us a free Yelan skin, I mean, I'm not gonna say no to it, of course, but
exactly. Hey, I'm all for it.
That's a W. But all right, looking at the next thing though, we also have some thespian tricks: Klee, Fischl, Kokomi, Zhongli, Al-Haytham, Layla, Gaming, and Hazo. Basically, it's those things that you can use to basically like take pictures, or like Raiden right now can just like stop when she's just holding her sword. So that's kind of the idea here, is like just basically more fun stuff for pictures
from Imaginarium Theater.
Right, and these will probably be on our next Imaginarium Theater run for our thespian tricks. Also, we have a 5.2 new story recap feature. So here it states that during certain quests, if the current quest is related to other quest stories you've already completed, then you can recap these already completed stories in some way. We're not really sure about how exactly that's done, but it is nice to know that this could be happening, especially in 5.2, especially if, like, you know, you're trying to just get through content of the game and you're trying to catch up. If you can keep the rewards and just do a story recap where it gives you the highlights of what's happening, maybe gives you only cutscenes or stuff like that, skips any battles that you have to do, that might actually be extremely useful for people that are trying to catch up with 5 years of content in the game. So I do think this is a good thing, as long as it does give you the rewards for it as well.
I think it's a good thing for people who are returning players. Like, they took a break and it's been like a year and they have really no idea what's going on, what's happened since. And they just needed to catch up as fast as possible to get in on the loop, have the new domains unlocked, the new areas unlocked, just stuff like that perhaps. And so they had to kind of just speed run it. Maybe they want an actual, now that they're all the way caught up and doing the last thing they're caught up to, being 5.2, they can just kind of, maybe they're doing this through like a cutscene type of thing, where we see here that we don't really know how it's gonna play out. How is the recap gonna work? I would think, and I would like prefer if it's something that's like, gives you a little short movie, like, okay, this happened and this, and it would be just kind of cool, and I'd like actually probably want to watch that, even already knowing everything that's happened. So I don't know, that's just kind of my thoughts of how maybe they could do it.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting no matter which way they do it, and hopefully it will be here in 5.2 so that it's as soon as possible. It's nice quality of life stuff for something that people that already are playing the game might not think about, but it is definitely going to be good about for people that are coming back or are starting the game from scratch. Well, that's everything we've got talking about everything that we have in this Interact post. We talked about Mavuika kit ideas, Chaska's changes, we've talked about thespian tricks, cool ideas there, mainly talking about the Spiral Abyss as well, some issues that might be coming with the new boss and how that might look. Maybe not a problem, but just something to keep in mind as you are thinking about, should I grab an Atlan character, should I not, you know, what's the idea here? That might be something to just think about as, you know, characters are here and characters are coming out in the future to get Atlan characters. That might be an idea to maybe make your Spiral Abyss runs easier. If not though, don't worry about it, you probably will be fine. I don't think this is going to be an only like Natlan character thing, but it will be something that might just make your life a tad more difficult in the Abyss. Once again, that's everything we've got here today, so thank you guys for watching the video. Please go ahead and like and subscribe, check out the Discord as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one.